Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Nila Shabillah with your number 2010-25008 and I am from PBI1. So in this today I want to uh, present you about my material, the qualitative study. So here we go. Let's watch it together. Qualitative research design. Qualitative research involves written or spoken language from visible persons and actors. And qualitative method describe and analyze individual or group occurrence, events, social dynamics, attitudes, beliefs, and perceptions. And qualitative research seeks to comprehensively comprehend study participant behavior, perspectives, motives, behavior using words and language natural setting. Well, qualitative research has fewer respondents because it's prioritized data. Depth above data quantity also is preferable because the data is more in-depth, detailed, and uncovered. Well, there are 5 quality research methods, namely phenomenology, ethnography, case study, grounded theory, and historical research. So, let's talk about it one by one. The first is phenomenology. Phenomenological research attentively observes and listens of people to explain and understand of their experience. Phenomenological study seeks to understand and explain a person's life experience and interaction with others and their environments. A phenomena may receive as something that exists and emerge in the researcher's awareness by how the process becomes transparent and objective. Well, the implementation based on efforts to understand and describe the intrinsic characteristic of the phenomena that occur in oneself. The second is ethnography. Ethnography is a branch of social science and humanities, as etymology came from word ethos and means tribe and grapen, which means writing or description. Ethnography is the science that describes the truths. The object of this research in the form of ethnic groups. It's closely related to human life in society and culture. Ethnographic study examines how people in a society use language to communicate and how language shapes and functions society. Characteristic of ethnography. First is cultural depth, focuses on developing culture and implementing it by a particular ethnic group. The second is cultural sharing group. It can be carried out on 2 or more people with the same attitude, language, and behavior. The third is based on fieldwork. The data taken utilizing ethnographers going directly to the researcher's location. And the third is description in ethnography. Contains a detailed description and explanation of what the object did during the research. Fourth is context. Context is the overall setting of the place, situations, or environment surrounding the cultural group under study. And the last is researcher reflexivity. Researcher reflexivity is a conscious and open attitude toward the researcher and the object research that will create a feeling of reliance between the researcher and the thing being researched. And there are types of ethnographic research. The first is realist ethnography. It shows objective condition in a cultural group reported from a third-person point of view. The researcher will describe the facts in detail and report what is observed and heard from group participants while maintaining objectivity. And the second is critical ethnography. This research tries to respond to ongoing social issues such as gender or emancipation, power, status quo, inequality of rights, and equity. I think that's all my material, and the next material will be delivered by my friends. Thank you.
Explanation. Now I'm going to explain my material, but allow me to introduce myself first. I am Aisyah Cahya Abibillah with my student ID numbers 2010, 2050, 13. So let's begin from case study. Case study research is a method used to find or investigate problems in depth about an individual, group, institution, social movement, or event related to the phenomenon, context, and time. It signifies that the problem or the phenomena is limited in time and may not exist again in the future. As a result, this case study research is directly relevant to the current situation. Case study investigate a case or social phenomenon's origins, condition, and relationship. And the next point is about characteristic of case study research. As you can see from the screen, there are 6 points. First, following characteristic. The characteristic of good case study research have the following characteristic. Second, viewing the object of research as a case or problem. You should be ready to choose the specific case that you want to focus on. And the third, viewing case as a contemporary phenomena. You can choose a more general or representative case to model a particular category, experience, or phenomenon that is on the rise. And the next point is done based on the facts or existing facts. And fifth, using a various data sources for research to obtain enough information for drawing correct inferences. And the last point, using the appropriate theory as a guide or research reference. Material is about grounded theory. Grounded theory research examines core principles and guidelines to find or enhance a theory. This grounded theory technique uses observation and field studies. Observation and field studies were utilized to collect data and compare categories, phenomena, and situations, utilizing inductive, deductive, and verification investigation until the data was saturated. Move on to the historical method. Historical method study uses historical facts and witnesses to recreate the past. This data can be found in historical documents, artifacts, verbal accounts, and credible live witnesses. Because it examines events that have passed, the hallmark of historical research is the time when phenomena are seen as developments or changes based on a time shift. Okay, I think that's all my explanation. The next material will be explained by Zullia. Zullia, time is yours.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Let me introduce myself. First, my name is Zullia Tri Lestari with my ID student number 2020-2050-19. Okay, I would like to continue the material about participant in qualitative research. So now, after I read that books, I got 11 points about participants in qualitative research. So the first is qualitative research focuses on specific social settings rather than a population. Next point, the results of qualitative research are applicable to similar social settings, not the population. And next point, qualitative researchers uses a resource, participant, or informant instead of respondent. Next point, qualitative researchers observe and interview social situation specialists. Next point, purposeful talks and aims determine the interviewers in qualitative research. Next point, qualitative research uses a purposive and snowball sampling. Next point, data sources are sampled with purpose in qualitative research. Next point, snowball sampling is used for tiny data sources that grow. Next point, qualitative researchers can determine their sample before and throughout their investigation or emergent sampling design. And next point, researchers select individuals to contribute data based on the prior sample. And the last point, researchers can find more samples for more data in qualitative research. The next material about qualitative data collection. I got 5 points about that. The first is data in qualitative research methods includes any spoken and written material, including visuals and photos. Next point about qualitative data is collected through observation, documentation, and interviews. Next point about non-human sources like papers and records can also be used in qualitative data collections. And the next point, focus groups discussion of FGD is also a commonly used method for collecting qualitative data. For example of using qualitative data collection methods is interviews are used to gather teachers' opinions about the new curriculum. Observation is used to study how a teacher creates a vibrant classroom. Okay, the next material about interviews. Interviews are a method of collecting research data through a dialogue between an investigator and a respondent. So the first interview can be structured with an interview guide or unstructured without a guide. Next point about information technology allows for face-to-face interviews via telecommunication. Next point, interviews provide in-depth information and can be used to verify information collected through other methods. Next point, recorded interviews provide real proof and the data is summarized and interpreted by the researcher. Next point, interview questions should be simple, open-ended, and brief, and the researchers must use participant-friendly language. Next point, in-depth interviews should last 90 minutes and involve one interviewer and one informant. In qualitative research, various interview models are as follows. The first is deep interview. The interviewer and interviewee have a familiar connection, thus the research is casual. In-depth interviews are used to contextualize contemporary construct in terms of people, events, action, sentiments, motives, responses, or perception, degrees, and types of engagement. Second is interview with general instructions. This type of interview requires the interviewer to develop a framework or outline of the subject in the form of interview instructions. The third point about open standard interview. An open interview is an interview using a set of standard questions, namely questions with the exact wording, sequence, and presentation method for all interviewed informants. This type of interview needs to be used if the variety of questions will make it difficult for researchers because the number of informants is quite large. The fourth point about structured interview. In a structured interview, the interviewer set his problems and questions to ask. This type of interview aims to find an answer to hypotheses. The fifth point is unstructured interview. Unstructured interviews stress as exceptions, deviations, unaccepted interpretation, first way as per viewpoints or solitary perspectives. Sixth point about semi-structured interview. An open-ended interview is underway. The research person replies prompt further inquiries which intensifies information meeting during the session. Okay, the next material about interview guideline. Interview guideline makes an interview run effectively according to the plan prepared. The researcher needs to develop an interview guide as guide for the interview. The benefits of interview guidelines are: the first is the interview process went according to plan. Next, the interview can collect answers from informants and informant as decided by the researcher. Third point, it is easier for researchers to classify the data. Next point, researchers concentrate more on submitting questions according to the focus of the study in research. Next point, anticipating missed question. I think that's all. Thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Okay, I will continue the material of how to collect the data in qualitative research. Before that, let me introduce myself. My name is Yasmin Syahrina with student ID number 2020-5023, and the
material is about observation. So, observation is a systematic and purposeful exploration of occurrence, especially with the eyes that may be examined afterward. The observation main goal is the description. The quality of research is determined by how far and deep the researcher understands the situation, the context, and describe them as naturally as possible. In addition, observation do not have to be carried out by the researchers themselves, so researchers can ask for help from others to carry out the observation. There are several forms of observation. First is participatory or participant observation. Involves the researchers in the informal everyday activity to collect development data. Researchers use unstructured observation to adapt to field changes. And the last, a group of researchers observe a study topic. Next of how to collect the data in qualitative research is we can use documentation. So documentation derives from the word document or written products. The term documentation technique refers to process for gathering data by documenting data that already exists. So documents pertaining to an individual or a group of individuals, events, or events that took places in contexts that are connected to the study topic. And the last technique is focus group discussion or FGD. So the FGD technique involves investigating a specific phenomenon via the conversation of a group of people. And the basic goal of the focus group discussion approach is to acquire the data interaction resulting from a conversation of a group of participants or respondents in order to increase the depth of information and expose various facets of a life occurrence in order to describe and explain these phenomena. The result of the data that took place during the group discussion may be used to focus on or stress the similarities and contrasts, also give factual information and statistics regarding a perspective that was formed as a direct result of the outcomes of the discussion. FGD also has various features in comparison to other approaches to collecting the data. FGD actions that are carried out objectively and externally are characterized by the characteristic of their execution, which is facilitators and moderators who are knowledgeable, dependable, and trained are required for FGDs in order to guide talks in such a way that interaction between participants are centered or finding solutions to problems. When putting the FGD techniques into practice, you will conduct semi-structured interviews with a group of people. There will also be a moderator who present and will guide the conversation in an informal atmosphere. And the purpose of the interview is to gather data or information on particular topics. The FGD also characterized from the number of participants in single group discussion can be relatively variable. Between 4 and 8 people can make up the members of a single group discussion. Characteristics of issues can be obtained through the FGD method are issues to gain an understanding of the behavior and attitudes of a group of individuals or to find out perceptions, insight, and explanation about social issues that are not personal, general, and non-threatening. So, I think that's all about the material. Thank you.
Alright, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Me Haris Firnando with student ID number 2020205025. In this video, I am going to explain about focus group discussion. The focus group discussion FGD technique is one method for gathering data for research. The end result of using this method yields data derived from the interaction of several study participants. As is the case with most other methods of data collection, in comparison to other approaches to data collection, The FGD technique has several distinguishing features. It is a type of data collection method used in qualitative research. The investigation of social interactions conducted by the informants who took part in the discussion process is what resulted in the generation of the data that was used. The characteristics of FGD actions that are carried out objectively and externally are characterized by their executions. FGDs require knowledgeable, dependable, and trained facilitators and moderators to guide discussions in such a way that interactions between participants are centered on finding solutions to problems. You will conduct semi-structured interviews with a group of people when using the FGD technique. A moderator will also be present to guide the conversation in an informal setting. The interviews are designed to collect data or information on specific topics. The FGD methodology is distinguished by the fact that the number of participants in a single discussion group can be quite variable. A single discussion group can have between 4 and 8 participants. The characteristics of issues that can be obtained through the FGD method are issues to gain an understanding of a group of individuals' behaviors and attitudes, or to discover perceptions, insights, and explanation about non-personal, general, and non-threatening social issues. As a result, the FGD method cannot collect all problems or issues. However, the FGD method is not appropriate for obtaining sensitive personal issues such as health status, sexual life, financial problems, and personal religion. The FGD technique entails investigating a specific phenomenon through a group of people's conversations. The approach emphasizes the collaborative efforts of those involved in the phenomenon in order to reach a consensus. Participants in a discussion will interact with one another by talking, asking questions, and making comments to one another about their personal experiences or ideas about a societal problem or topic that will be identified or resolved in the discussion group. The primary goal of the focus group discussion FGD method is to collect data interaction resulting from a conversation among a group of participants or respondents in order to increase the depth of information and expose various facets of a life occurrence in order to describe and explain these phenomena. The data derived from the interactions that occurred during the group discussion can be used to highlight or emphasize the similarities and differences in experiences, as well as provide factual information and statistics about a perspective formed as a direct result of the group discussion's outcomes. Next is qualitative data analysis. Thematic analysis is a method of data analysis that can be used to look for recurring themes or patterns within a body of research. If the goal of a study is to investigate in depth the qualitative data they have, uncover correlations between patterns in a phenomenon, and describe the extent to which a phenomenon occurs from the researcher's point of view, then this approach is particularly effective. Thematic analysis stages include: the first step is to comprehend data. Here, the researcher must comprehend and integrate the qualitative data gathered. Furthermore, reading and rereading interview transcripts, as well as listening to interview recordings or viewing films created during the data collection process, is the most effective way to become more integrated with the data. The primary goal of this initial stage is for the researcher to appear to be grasping the contents of the data that he has received and to begin finding items in the data that are related to the research questions that he has posed. It is natural for the researcher to want to read the interview transcript at least once, twice, or even 3 times until the researchers understands and is close to the data. Furthermore, when combined with the notes taken during the observations, they will be critical in tracing the depths of the data he reads. The second step is to write code. The second step in conducting a data thematic analysis is to begin the coding process. This coding is comparable to the process used by the librarians to determine the topic of a book's title. Consider the situation where the reader is looking for the point of a paragraph. Codes are a type of label or feature found in data that is relevant to the research topic. In this case, the researcher decides which bits of information from the interview transcript should be coded. The code should be expressed as clearly as possible so that when it is analyzed in the future, the researcher has a better understanding of the significance of each participant's scan statements. The third step is to look for themes. The theme must reflect the research objectives. This theme identifies anything significant in the data that is related to the research problem formulation strategy. This theme can be used to describe the pattern of the occurrence being studied. Next is data trustworthiness. The process of determining whether or not qualitative research is accurate and reliable is known as data validity verification. The concept of data trustworthiness encompasses the requirements for how credible, transferable, dependent, and conformable the data are. The qualitative methodology includes 8 data checking approaches in addition to the 4 criteria: participation extension, observation persistence, triangulation, peer checking, and sufficiency of references. Negative case studies, member screening, and in-depth descriptions are all available. That's all my explanation. Thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.